Thank you for joining J by J's virtual Q&A for Still Life in Lodz. I'd like to take a moment to introduce tonight's panel, starting with Still Life in Lodz director Slawomir Grünberg, a graduate of the renowned Polish Film School in Lodz, who is an Emmy Award winner and a director, producer, and cinematographer of 45 documentary films. Also joining us tonight, Lilka Elbaum was born in Lodz to Holocaust survivors in 1968 as a result of a brutal government-sponsored anti-Semitic campaign. Like most Polish Jews, Lilka and her family left Poland for Canada. She currently works at the Elie Wiesel Center for Jewish Studies at Boston University. Also with us this evening, Paul Seller was born in New Jersey to Polish-born Holocaust survivors. His grandmother was a prisoner in the Lodz ghetto and then in Auschwitz and at a slave labor camp in Germany. Still Life in Lodz is dedicated to Paul's parents, Rosa Posalska and David Scheller. Tonight's moderator, Jon Gann, is a force in the film festival world, having created, consulted with, and fostered dozens of events around the globe. In the past year, he has worked on AFI Docs, Key West Film Festival, DC Environmental Film Festival, San Francisco Indie Fest, among others. In addition to tonight's program, JBJ's annual festival returns this May 23rd through 30th with hybrid programming that includes virtual and live outdoor films and concerts. Keep an eye out for a program announcement later this month. If you would like to submit questions for tonight's panel, please submit them via the Zoom's Q&A box. And with that, I'll pass it to our moderator, Jon Gann.
Thank you, Alexis. Thank you very much for having us. Very excited about this evening's discussion. I love the film, and I can't wait to hear more about it. The format is going to be, I have some questions for each of our panelists, and then we will open it up to the Q&A. So please make sure that if you have a question, that you use the Q&A function. It's the button on the bottom of your screen with the two little dialog boxes. But before we start, I just want to point out that this is the eve of Yom HaShoah, Holocaust Remembrance Day in Israel. And so I just want you to keep that in your minds as you go about the rest of your day tomorrow. I'm going to start with questions for Lilka. How are you doing?
I'm fine. Thank you, Jon.
Good. So I've heard of this film happened because of a special encounter. Can you tell us about that?
Yes. Well, essentially, I left Poland in 68, and I've been to Poland hundreds of times. I was not on any sort of quest to find anything from my past. But when I went in 2016 to a wedding of the great-granddaughter of the righteous couple who saved my mother during the war, I basically also connected with another friend. And at a certain point, she said to me, "Can I show you the painting?" And I was like, "What painting?" I completely initially, didn't connect. But once I saw the painting, I was just totally emotionally, I wouldn't say gutted, but I certainly was impacted by the encounter with an object, inanimate object, which connected me to my life in Poland. And particularly, I was touched by it because my parents, today, as you said, is eve of the Yom HaShoah, and I am a daughter of two Holocaust survivors who survived because of the help from Polish Christians, de facto. And I just felt that, 23 years after they, were liberated and could resume their life, they again had to leave Poland because they were Jews. So all of this created a lot of emotion, and I felt that I really need to tell the story. And eventually, after many, many kind of stages, it became this film.
So Europe is full of forgotten objects, and their fantastic stories have been left behind. How does this painting that's full of memories, how did it become so important to you?
Well, as I mentioned, because it really was part of our life. In other words, I was particularly, close with the painting physically, I mean, close proximity, because it hung over, the bed, which I slept at night, but in Europe, you don't have like separate bedrooms, at least, as you know, in those days, most people didn't. So I slept in the living room, and it was a day bed, but at night it was my bed, and the painting was always above me. And it is a painting which is not really a masterpiece, it's not that valuable, but it represents a certain genre of paintings, and it was very interesting to look at. So every morning when I woke up, the first thing I saw, if I looked up to my left, was a painting. And no matter, I've only lived in it for until I left. So maybe like I became aware of my surroundings when I was 5 or 6. So it wasn't that many years, but I always discovered new details. And it's amazing that the painting, when I saw it after 48 years in Łódź, near Łódź, it was exactly the same. It was in a remarkable condition, and the frame is the original frame. But I have to say that I never really was that interested about its history, about its provenance. I was just an object. But for people who had the misfortune of living in Poland, or what was the territory of Poland, like my parents and like Paul's parents, I think that any object, first of all, they survived, and with nothing. They were completely bereft of any possessions. So we never had any possessions like people have heirlooms, which are passed on through generation by here, in the United States or Canada, anywhere. And so it became like almost like our own object, something which symbolized our family and our history. And I think this feeling is very very common among second generations, even, that we are always looking for something which connects us to the pre-war world. But in my case, it was also to the life which we had to live because we were thrown out of Poland, let's face it. And that's why I was so close to it. It was something which was my everyday companion.
What do you think will happen to the painting in the future?
Very interesting question. When you see the film, in the last frame, there is the sentence that actually, after the film was already completed, we were able to find out that the survivor, the people who originally owned the painting, descendants, they have descendants that, they live in Israel. In other words, the sons of the Jewish dentists who live in the apartment my parents moved in 1945, we felt initially that the whole family perished, but we found out that actually the sons who were at that time during the like 20 and 24, they survived, and they left Poland in 56. They moved to Israel, and now there's a whole bunch of descendants. I got in touch with them, and I kind of, told them about the film, and I told them about the painting, and of course they would like to get the painting back. But I would say it's a complicated matter because it is not like a restitution case. The painting was sold with all the content at a symbolic price to the friends of my parents, very fine people. And as you see in the film, they owned it for a longer period of time than we do. So they are very attached to it. And I wanted to buy it. I immediately offered to purchase it, but they declined. And we started kind of discussions. Would they be interested to sell it to the rightful descendants, the owners of the painting? And unfortunately, it is not going anywhere. That's much I can only say.
Okay.
It will
Paul.
remain in Poland.
Okay, well, I think that's fine where it should be. Paul, how did you get involved in this project?
I got involved in this project through a mutual friend of Lilka's and mine, a fine young lady living in New Jersey by the name of Bonnie Anfang. Bonnie also is a second generation survivor. Her parents were in the Warsaw Ghetto. And what happened was she knew Lilka. She spoke to Lilka and told Lilka about me, that my mom survived the Lodz Ghetto. And she introduced us. And so I met Lilka in a hotel up in Manhattan Beach, in the city. And prior to meeting with her, I spoke with her, and I became very fascinated with the fact that she was so much into the genealogy here and everything, and the fact that she had access to a phone book from the city of Lodz going back to 1938, 39. And she was going to be able to identify more or less where my mom's family lived. So I became very fascinated with it. I brought all kinds of artifacts with me, old pictures of my mom, her family, whatever I had, my dad, his family from Poland, all kinds of things. I'm very sentimental. I managed to maintain a lot of important documents that belong to my parents, like naturalization papers when they first came to the United States, and that was it. It was a no-brainer as far as getting involved in the film. I grew up knowing quite a bit about the Holocaust, and I was always interested to listen to stories whenever they would be presented to me. And it's been a wonderful experience.
Nice. During the process of making the film and going back, what did you discover that you did not know before?
Well, what I discovered was this. First of all, this was my second time in going to Poland. I was there about 8 years earlier with my son on a trip with his yeshiva, and during that trip, that trip was my first time in Poland. That was we call the icebreaker. You get in, just shatters you emotionally. You see everything, okay, from Auschwitz to Chelmo to Lodz to Treblinka to Belzec, everything. We were in Krakow, but this trip was a little bit more in depth because I never went to my mom's hometown of Lask, which is a suburb of Lodz, about a half an hour away. So I actually went to my mom's hometown and I saw where she grew up and where she endured some of the humiliation during the war, as you see in the film, and also in the church where she was held hostage with thousands of other Jews before she was sent to the ghetto. So that was the difference as far as going this time as opposed to the first time. And also I got a chance this time to visit my dad's hometown of Kielce, which is another town. It's in the government part of Poland, a little bit closer to Warsaw. And Kielce has its history as well. Kielce is more well known for the pogrom that occurred after the war, July 4th, 1946. So it was very much more in depth this time. All right, my visit to Poland, and it's an experience I'll never forget.
How connected do you feel to Lodz?
I feel somewhat connected to it. Just the part that my mom was there, and she survived this horror being in the ghetto, and the challenge of having to try to survive on a minimal amount of calories per day. She was one of the fortunate ones because she was a skilled worker. She was a seamstress. So, she got a couple of extra bowls of soup during the course of a day, the average person in the ghetto, they might get as much as maybe 300 calories a day to survive on, which is, really nothing, and that's why, you had so many people in the ghetto, they died of just pure starvation, malnutrition, it's also another reason why my mom, it was her joy to feed the family, and make sure everybody ate. Food was not something to be wasted. You know, that's something that I think that every second generation Holocaust uh, person has gone through in their lifetime. So.
Yeah. So before I start questioning Slawomir, I have just to remind everyone that if you have questions, that you can use the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. We would love to hear some of your questions. Slawomir, first, how did you get involved with this?
It started when Lilka came to me with an idea of a film about story of her memories of the painting, which hang in the same apartment for so many years. And it's supposed to be a film about her discovering of the past of Łódź and discovering of what happened to the painting. And it was a different kind of idea at the very beginning. And we talk about this. I didn't have time at the very moment when Lilka approached me, and then 1 year later, she came back to me because she tried with a different filmmaker whom I suggested. And then we started working on this project. And I knew Lilka from a different documentary, which I did 10 years earlier, called Perecniks. The Perecniks was a movie about a school, a Jewish school in Łódź, where Lilka was part of, and the school was closed in 1969. And so this story of Łódź was already depicted in my early film. This was a second attempt or second film about history of Łódź, which is familiar to me because I studied their filmmaking. I was in Łódź for 5 years in the film school. So this is a familiar territory. However, each film is a new discovery. So when we started working on this one, originally the idea was that Lilka will be a main character. Then Paul came to the picture, and then during the filming, we discovered Roni Ben-Ari, who lives in Israel. And we discovered that she is actually from the same building, from the same, not she is, but her parents or her grandparents lived in the same building where Lilka lived. So we asked her to come and join us in Łódź. And suddenly the film is about 3 people looking for traces of their memories. And so that's how it started, and that's how it ended. A lot of things during the filming was discovered. Even the fact that Paul's mom was from Wask was discovered while we were filming, because at the very first moment, during the very first shooting days, we knew that she is from Łódź. We thought that she was in Łódź, and we were filming actually a building which, as we assume, we're building where she lived. During the filming, we discovered, or Lilka discovered, because she is a great researcher, that it was Wask, another town close to Łódź, where Paul's mom was from. And then she was brought to Łódź, to the ghetto. And so many things were happening while we were filming, including the fact that the person who was supposed to be in the building before the war started, Lilka heard that this was a Jewish Jewish dentist. What?
German dentist.
Oh,
German.
I'm sorry. Sorry, that it was a Jewish family, and then when Germany took over Łódź and it became Litzmannstadt, there was a German dentist living in this apartment, and so we had animators working on the German dentist while filming, while doing this research. We discovered that it was actually a Jewish dentist living there before the war, and a German guy who moved in was a carpenter. So we had to ask. I had to ask my animators to make new drawings to change the German guy from a dentist to a carpenter, and change the woman who was a Jewish woman. To be a dentist. So the film was created in many ways while we were filming. There was original idea of Lilka's story, and then we ended up with 3 characters, very different stories, but that's how it is sometimes.
So going back to the animation, using animation in a documentary is always an interesting choice. Can you talk about why you decided to use animation as one of these storylines that goes all the way through?
Yes, I had experience with animation before with a film called Karski and the Lords of Humanity. So I tested the ground 5 years earlier, and it worked perfectly in this other film. So I knew that since I would be working on the film, which is a poetic story, where we deal with a lot of metaphors. The film depicts people looking for traces of memories. So it's a poetic story, and animation somehow fit in my head into this genre. And then it was a question, what kind of animation? We went through many different animators, groups of animators. We selected the one which did the film. It took some time. They were providing me with sketches, drawings. I had to decide what tone, what color of animation, what kind. So it is a process which I was already familiar with after Karski movie. So then it is what it is. It worked. Many people who watched the film, who gave reviews, most of the reviews are actually very positive about animation in the film.
Oh, I think it's beautiful, and I think it's a fantastic device to tie it all together. So
the additional thing is to tie together 3 characters. That's
right.
Animation is another device, another tool to make sure that 3 stories are not just individual stories, and the audience are looking at 3 different short films. Through animation, you can connect the 3 characters.
So I know you've made many, many films about the connection between Jews and the Jews of Poland. How is this film different? How is that connection slightly different?
I think it's different because it's much more poetic. I use music in the film, which was composed to the film. I never did this before. Wojciech Lemański, a composer from Łódź, composed music to the completed film. It's different because I use a lot of effects. Photography is one of the effects where you have a picture from, let's say, 70 years ago, and then the camera is in the same place and takes its picture from today, and we can go through the transition, what happened between then and now. We have drone images to look at Łódź from different perspective to visualize the scope of the city, the size of the city, of the Łódź ghetto, former Łódź ghetto, of the cemetery, Jewish cemetery. So a lot of images and sounds which I never use in the other films. I think this is like combination of all of them to talk about, to unpack the history and unpack the memory and the life in general.
It's beautifully done, and there's many. I'm producing a short documentary right now, and I'm like, oh, I like that technique, and I like that. There's a lot of great stuff. I have questions for everyone. First, has the film screened in Lodz yet?
Yeah, it had a premiere in Łódź. Official screening was in 2019 in November, and had a screening at the festival, and then sort of disappeared because of COVID situation. We had special screenings at Tribeca in New York, but then really the film was put on the shelf. So we gave film another life now. Also added this one line at the end of the film that, you know, Lilka discovered actually a family who is in the film, that their children and grandchildren are still alive in United States and Israel.
Okay. How was the film received in Poland?
Lilka, want to
Yeah, sure.
answer?
Well, you know, it was only shown at this premiere, and it was, I think, very well received. A lot of my friends who came from all over Europe, you know, the people who also, like me, lived in Poland until 68 and had to leave, but now live all over the world. But those who live in the European Union, they all came, and also strangers, you know, it was amazing because we also were able to bring the people who lived in the building at the same time I did. So my friends, I spent a lot of time in the courtyard, which is so well documented in the film. And some of them came, and everybody was very kind in their comments in terms of the way the film was presented, the music, the animation, the story. So, and also in Wask, and maybe Paul, you can say, what do you think, how it was received in Wask, you know, which is the town your mother was born?
This was another screening.
Yes.
in Łódź area.
I thought that it was received very well, actually. You know, it was, what do we have there? About smaller group, about 25 people, right, Lilka?
No, there were a lot. No,
Oh,
I
really?
think there were maybe like 80 or 90 or maybe,
Oh, maybe they
100.
were, okay. I was
Yeah.
thinking, I was
Yeah.
thinking about the thing afterwards that was done. Yeah,
Oh
upstairs.
yeah, no, it
Yeah.
was quite a few people.
Yeah, it was very interesting. I thought that it was very well received, and you know, it was you know, everybody got really into it, very emotionally into it. I would mention also the thing that really struck me the most after I watched this film was the music. The music is emotionally gripping. Okay. It just rivets you, okay? Each scene that you see and everything. I think that music can play a very important part dramatically, okay, in a film. And I think that the music that was featured in this film, with the orchestra and everything, it was amazing, truly amazing. Yeah.
Excellent. So I have so one of my big questions is, what do you want audiences to take away from this when they're done? And I'm asking this sort of in a two-level way. What do you want an older audience to take away from this? What do you want a younger audience to take away from this film? Because I think maybe it's perhaps something different.
Shall I? Okay, well, I think that overall, not only younger people, what I experienced since the film was shown here in the United States was quite amazing. because spontaneously people reach out to me, and they all have somehow the connection to Łódź. Although some of them were only maybe there for 5 or 6 years, and then they immigrated, they still have some very vivid memories. And I've been now approached a number of times, and I can see on the chat there's also a similar question, because, you know, I think generally people are very interested in the roots. And as I mentioned, which was a gigantic, sort of a agglomeration of a Jewish society. It was a very well developed place, and 85% of all Jews in the world come from Poland, and this was one of the largest cities where Jews lived. Although Jews lived all over Poland, small towns where there were majority of population, like smaller. I mean, like Łask had a very large Jewish community. So it's sort of the kind of making it a little bit well known and accessible, that it is not only about what happened from 1939 to 45, this gigantic tragedy which had befallen the Jewish people. But before that, there was life there. There was a great culture. And I find that after seeing the film, at least from my experience, people really want to know more. I mean, I got a lot of inquiries, just, people I don't know who reach out to me through our Facebook page, and it's very gratifying. So for me, first of all, the fact that from this idea, we are sitting, we are talking about it now, and the film was created. Many people were incredibly instrumental in making this happen. But the film is out there, and it brings in another aspect of Jewish history, more recent one, and it impacts people that they want to share their own stories. So I am already very gratified, and my expectations are exceeded from this perspective.
Yeah, I think the film should be recommended to everyone, and particularly young people who are studying history in schools. I mean, it gives it's like a peel of a history of Łódź, 75 years. It's like everything is in one peel. It's easy to swallow. If you follow the film, you know a lot about anti-Semitism. You know a lot about history of Polish Jews. You know particularly history of Jews in Łódź. You know about Germans entering the city and changing it into German. You know about ghettos and cemeteries, Jewish cemeteries. So it's a lot of information, and it's put into 75 minutes format. So definitely it's a very educational film, in my opinion, as well.
Oh, what would you like people to take away?
My take on this is, first of all, the most gratifying part for me is the fact that I have something to leave to my children and to my grandchildren, all right, and to future generations, from my family, that they know what happened, and to know really deep down inside where their roots came from. And this way, they will never be able to forget. And, as hard as it is, and hopefully one day they may end up making that forbidden trip. Like my mom forbid me to go to Poland. My dad said to me, same thing, don't go to Poland. They never went back, because it was too painful for them. But, I went back, and it's a life-changing experience. And the other thing that was very amazing, and I still find it this day, what happened in 1968 was not big news in the world at that time. You have to remember, around that same time, Bobby Kennedy was shot prior to 68, it was in 67. Martin Luther King was shot also around that time. And you had the 6-Day War in 67, all right? So all of these things were happening, and you had the Vietnam War and everything. This was not the big news item that was in the paper that anybody ever knew about, okay? And to this day, I've still met a lot of people that I know. They're not even aware of this, what happened with this expulsion. It just happened. It was a very quietly, it was done. And it's just, it was never covered. It was never out there. And and I think that it's important that everybody in the world knows that this did happen in 1968, and there's 25,000 Jews whose lives were completely turned around, and it's a very traumatic experience for anybody to go through. So, and the film is for everybody to see. I can tell you that my experiences when I've been in Yad Vashem in Israel, the most interesting thing is watching other people's faces when they watch this stuff, what happened and everything. They just can't believe it. It's so they see these things, and it's an eye opener for people, and even more so, okay, anybody that goes to Poland to see what actually happened. It's just it's mesmerizing, okay, but at the same time, it's a very fulfilling experience. You come back and you're very grounded, and say that you're very fortunate, okay, after seeing what everybody else went through during this period of time where so many millions of people during this war got killed.
I understand.
And one more thing,
Yeah, please.
if I may.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, yeah, because I think there's another element of the film answering your question. What the viewer will come out from by watching the film is the power of roots, power of the special objects and the role of memory we have. That this is what this film is about, and it reminds us about the value of those memories or mementos which were passed through generations. The power of these memories, and this is basically a main reason why people who are second generation Holocaust survivors go back to places where those memories are left. There is no people, but there are memories of their fathers, mothers, grandmothers, and so on. So that's for me also a very important value of this film.
So I want to, got it. I want to leave with something a little happier. Slawomir, what are you working on next? Because as a filmmaker, you're always working on the next 3 projects.
Yeah, no, I am working. I'm finishing one film which will premiere hopefully in October, about this incredible woman who is 96 years old, lives in Bethesda, who was taking care. She's a Polish-American lady, and through her life, she decided to bring children from Poland to the United States and give them education. And she did this with over 100 kids, and some of them were from poor homes, from special families, and she gave education to three of these kids, and they're adults now. So it's a story about her and this three young people who call her grandma. So that's my new film. I'm finishing.
Sounds fantastic. Lilka, what are you working on next?
Me?
Yes, you working on
Well,
another
no,
project or research?
I basically, I did it as a private journey, and I was exposed to filmmaking in a major way because in the previous film, which I did with Sławek in 2007, I don't know, it's been a while, but 2007, I was just interviewed, so I was like one of many. But this time, I really got immersed in the sort of interesting environment. So this is good for a lifetime. But what I like to say that because, a lot of people who contact me, even, I can see the questions coming through here, is that they're interested in finding a lot about their families. Now, in this film, it is not only my sort of a kudos to me for doing research. We were exceptionally lucky to hook up with a professor at the University of Łódź who runs the German department, and she actually was instrumental in finding all the information, because this is not something which is easily accessible. I mean, the phone book is published and you can look through it. It's not easy to search through. You have to have a special application, so on, but it is in the public domain. But what we got, the reason we were able to find out who lived in not only in my apartment, but in each one of these apartments, there were 44 apartments, and 42 of them were occupied by Jewish families, and only 3 people survived. So we have so much information, and especially of the 2 sons of the woman who, the Jewish dentist, Paula Ehrlich, that we were thinking about writing, because every time I brought this kind of details to Sławek quite rightfully saw this is not material for a film, because, how do you really show all this information? But we have the information, and we are thinking about kind of maybe writing it up so people will know, the history in much more detail. But, this kind of information to find out, it would be very difficult for somebody who, there's a language barrier, in this case, German. And, those are documents which are being held, through various institutions, not necessarily archives, and you have to be like an academic and ask for permission. So it was quite involved, but, we were very lucky. So hopefully, I'll have enough time and energy to continue with this.
It's incredible work. I just think it's amazing. I know I've been working on my family tree, and I can only go back so far, and there's, they lived in small shtetls and there's no records, and yeah, so it's fantastic that you're able to have this kind of access to information. Well, I thank you guys very much for an incredible evening and for making an amazing film, a film that I hope that everyone who's listening will recommend to their friends and their friends' friends, because I think it's really an important movie to watch. Thank you guys very much for joining us, and thank you everyone who's listening for joining us also.
Can I just mention one thing?
Sure,
also?
Of course.
I just wanted to mention, I wanted to say a special thank you to all of the people that were on our marketing team that did the work on this thing. They are outstanding. They really put in a lot of effort and everything to help bring the film to, really to the forefront and everything, especially, after with COVID and everything, we just decided, we have to get something done with this. And they were all very, very, very good at what they did. And, that's that's the results that we have here. So it's, you know, I just want to, not going to give it personal shout outs to everybody, but everybody that was on the marketing team and everybody, all right?
Mhm.
Website, everybody all together, you know? They say in unity, there's strength. And that's the truth. That's for sure, you know? So,
True.
so yeah.
Again, thank you very much. Thank you to J by J and the JCC for sponsoring this. And that's all. Thank you very much.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Thank
Thank
you.
Thank you.